This gentleman stone cold it, showed up in my femcell video, and he left this comment: lack of humanity on all sides. Go to church. Bare minimum, try to be human. So go to church. So he's a tradcon, right? Now, there are good reasons why I reject that. But in any event, in his own channel, he has this video by Tired of Make Believe talking about the Amish. Now, I believe this is worth tackling because I'm going to bring out or tell you my thesis about the Amish at the right now. The Amish lifestyle is an effort for men to keep their women around. Now, let's listen to it and see what this guy has to say.
I've been fascinated with the Amish since I was a kid. Here in Pennsylvania, they are ubiquitous.
This guy's fascinated, but he won't become a part of the Amish. Hey, tired of make believe. How come you don't become an Amish person? You can. I bet they'd take you up on it.
I always had respect for their conviction and not succumbing to the debauchery of modern life. My
So how come you have tired of make believe? How come you, if you can get away from it yourself, you can become Amish, right? Modern life, it's so debauched, but I'm not leaving it, right?
encounters have been few and far between, but they are well thought of, and locals seek them out for well-made furniture, construction projects, and of course their meats, vegetables, and baked goods. In fact, I still make a weekly trip up to one of their farmers markets to stock up on all the essentials. One of my rural friends owns a farm alongside an Amish community, and they've become quite friendly. So I decided to pick his brain about them. He said they are especially fair to deal with in business as well as socially. They help him out on the farm, and he provides them transportation quite often.
He provides them transportation, right? Now, by rights, these people shouldn't accept that transportation. They'd be saying, sorry, we have shunned technology. We've shunned technology, but notice these people, they'll accept your handout, right?
Happily. He considers them friends. What struck me as odd was when this fellow brother in Christ.
They're not friends. They're keeping this guy at arm's length. The reason why these women are around is because by bucking technology, the women don't know how to live any other life. So they don't leave. That's what this is about.
Mention that they don't discuss religion with him. Several other friends have also mentioned the same when dealing with them on various construction projects. For some reason, that topic is off limits.
There isn't some reason, right? They despise other people. They have contempt for their fellow man. So they don't, if they liked other people and respected them, they would discuss their religion, right? But in order to keep their women in their space, they got to make sure that they are not involved with the rest of the world.
It could be that particular order in and around southeastern Pennsylvania, Lancaster to Philly, but I'm not sure. So I decided to do some research into their belief systems. We are dealing with a people who have, as much as possible, closed themselves off from the evils of this world. A fantastic example.
Not so much the evils. They've closed themselves off from the world so that their women don't leave. Think about it, guys. If you look at the old Playboy magazines with all those beautiful blondes, where did all those beautiful blondes come from? Many of them came from the Midwest. That's right. They'd grow up in farms and say, this is boring. I could do better. I'm a hottie. And they'd leave. Right?
Of John 17:14-17, where Jesus instructs
Why do you think California was known for its beautiful blonde women? Because they all came from the Midwest.
his followers to be in this world, but not of it. They follow the words of Christ as much as possible. They don't modify them to honor Satan like we do. Here are some examples. 1.
But not Satan. Women do. That's who you might have, unless you're considering the average woman Satan, because any verses that tell women to like honor men or obey men, that's what they reject, right?
Refuse violence. So obviously government whenever possible, especially military service.
Now, someone pointed this out that these people refuse violence. They can afford to because they're protected by other people. That's why. If these people were like, brought back to the old days, they would defend themselves because then they would lose their women. Some tougher group of guys would come around, beat up and kill the guys off and take their women, right? Remember, these guys are sacrificing everything so their women won't leave them.
In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus tells us to turn the other cheek, and they adhere to that noble gesture completely. They don't even believe in self-defense. To give you an idea just how nonviolent they are, take a look at the West Nickel Mines school shooting, also known as the Amish Schoolhouse Massacre. In 2006, just outside Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in a one-room schoolhouse, a shooter killed 6 little girls in cold blood. I won't go into specifics because the details are quite disturbing, but just know that it was an absolutely horrific crime. What makes this interesting is the community's response to the murders. A grandfather of one of the girls killed in the attack instructed everyone to forgive this man on the actual day it happened. The father of one of the victims tried to calm everyone down to pray for the shooter's soul. The community then reached...
No, this guy doesn't get what's going on here. How is this any different from a married man allowing his wife to have an abortion? How is this any different from the abortion issue, right? Strangers can come in and kill my children. But I'm willing to let that happen as long as the wife stays around. How's that any different from the guy who's a sexless marriage, or wife decides that she wants to abort her babies, nothing you do about it? And the husband stays. Why? Because he wants the woman. The children are sacrificial lambs to keep the wife around.
Reached out to the family of the killer to comfort them. 30 members of that Amish community, including family of the victims, attended his funeral. This is a level of love that cannot even be comprehended by modern society.
Dude, they don't love these guys. If they loved other people, they would involve themselves with us. No, they close themselves off. They despise their fellow man.
And tells you quite a lot about who they are spiritually. 2. They work with their hands and provide goods and services for the benefit of humanity. Just as...
Know why they get away with working with their hands? Again, because they've got the women so ignorant that those women can't leave and become a part of the outside world, which they would if they could. The women can't leave. They don't know enough. They don't know their basic mathematics. They can't get along out in society, right? They're completely ignorant. They don't know any better, right? What do you think's happening now outside of the Amish communities? Women dump their, or deselect, I should say. They don't even dump, they deselect blue collar men for white collar men. So that's how these guys remain blue collar. They work with their hands and they're willing to do it because they've got their women there who won't leave.
God intended, and quite unlike our own modern society. They have mastered this sentiment. 3. They do not take the adoption of new tech.
God demanded that people work with their hands since when? Show me the Bible verse that says that, right? If he does, how come the Pharisees were around? How come there were priests and synagogues where people didn't work with their hands? This is bullshit. Anyway, back up.
Sentiment. 3. They do not take the adoption of new technology lightly. I'm not really sure why. The New Testament doesn't focus much on technology, other than...
Really? Now, there you go. You're not sure why. The Bible doesn't focus on technology. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. The Bible has nothing to say about new technology. So this is not about them honoring the Bible or doing everything that the Bible says. These guys, they deny new technology for one good reason. To involve themselves in technology means to involve themselves with the rest of the world, which means involving their women with the rest of the world, and means the women will leave. They'll monkey branch to other men.
Jesus instructing us to be in this world, but not of it.
Now, of course, that's Mott and Bailey talk there, right? In this world, but not of it. And I'll ask, well, why don't you guys just take your own lives? Just go right to heaven. Why bother with this world, right? Hey, why do you guys pray to God when you're sick, right? Or how come you pray to God that the crops will do well? Isn't that involving this world? Right. So they're very much in this world, and then they'll try and deny it, right?
It is mentioned earlier. Or John 2:15, where he instructs us not to love the things in this world. But that could apply to nature as well. I couldn't find any specific text that addressed the rejection of human invention, so it could just be part of their Ordnung. Or it could be they got it from Enoch, where wicked...
No, you're reaching, dude. I can see exactly what this is about. The Amish culture is a sacrifice of almost everything truly meaningful to have women in their lives. Like even the children are sacrificial. Just keep this woman in my life.
Technologies introduced to the Nephilim from the fallen angels had destroyed the world. Maybe it's all of the above. Either way.
Yeah, notice the Bible is all about the lack of knowing, right? Adam and Eve, they didn't eat from the tree of sin, did they? They ate from the tree of knowledge. So nothing says a loving deity like keeping you ignorant.
They were correct. TV, internet, modern industry have led multiple generations away from Christ.
Really? So how come you're still on the internet, dude? What's your name again? Tired of make-believe. How come you're still on the internet then? All these guys that say the internet are so bad, they're always on it.
4. They also do not dress to impress or brag about their success, nor do they exhibit even the slightest hint of vain or prideful behavior.
Really, you know something? I do not want to live in a world where I can't see a beautiful woman in a thong bikini. And neither does this guy. That's why he doesn't become my Amish.
They wear plain clothes and no makeup. The New Testament is quite clear on this topic, as is Enoch. So no doubt as to why they don't have to think twice about it.
Well, these Amish men are willing to deal with women who don't look very good just so that they'll have them around. I'm telling you, they're sacrificing everything for this.
Question is, why do we, people who identify as Christians, do it? In John 2:16 and 17, Jesus instructs us not to succumb to the pride of life. Romans 1:21.
I know why you do it, because any woman who is not kept in this like cult here, she'll act the way she wants to act. And she'll wear her makeup and show off, flex her muscles, right? Flex her beauty muscles and enjoy male attention while deselecting them. That's why, dude. Right? All this religion is dependent on if women decide to follow it or not. Every bit of it.
Tells us to avoid vanity or empty self-centered thinking that replaces reverence for God. James 4:16 tells us that boasting and self-glorification, also forms of vanity, are very sinful. And Matthew 6:1 and 2 tells us to avoid righteous acts for vanity or public praise. These are all behaviors vacant from Amish communities. 5. They work together to improve the lives of their entire group. They don't compete with each other, as we have been brainwashed to believe is healthy and normal.
Not just brainwashed. They set it up so they don't have to. What you just mentioned there, right, is these guys have found a way out of, let's see, the women have social networks, guys have, I just a minute, I gotta think of the word. Oh, yes, hierarchies. These guys have found their way out of the hierarchy. If a man wants a woman in his life, he has to compete with other men. So these guys said, we're going to get away from the competition. We're going to evade the rest of the world that we have contempt, the rest of the people that we have contempt for. We're going to isolate ourselves and our women from other men. And that way we'll keep these women around. In this way, it's actually very clever. They have got away from the hierarchy, or at least the greater hierarchy. I suspect there's a hierarchy with men within their community. I bet there are deselected young guys in their community that they'll eventually have to find him a woman so he doesn't just leave. Right. One of the reasons they don't have war is they make sure that their young men have a woman. Almost all wars based on trying to keep a woman around to get access to one.
If someone gets sick, the entire community chips in to pay for their health care. A far cry from our own social norms.
Is that someone going to a hospital? Back that up. Yeah, I thought these people were all self-sufficient, right? So they take advantage of technology when they can and when they have to, right? And this is another reason why you don't join the Amish, dude. Because when you're sick, you run over to the, evil technological world in a heartbeat, right?
A far cry from our own social norms. They also ensure every member of their flock is well fed and has a home, and the entire community contributes to its construction. All the
Has a home and has a partner. Otherwise, young guys, if they were denied women, would go apeshit. It'd cause trouble or leave, and they need those working hands. That lifestyle demands working hands. So a viable young man who's healthy and can labor, they don't want him just leaving because he can't get laid.
while, our own society struggles with the largest housing crisis in human history. All
These Amish, they could take up some of these homeless guys. They love us so much, dude. They love us so much. They can invite these homeless men and say, hey, why don't you become Amish?
for the sake of greed.
I love the poor whipping boy Satan, guys. Right? Whenever God screws someone over, like he does in the book of Job, they always got Satan to fall back on. God didn't do this to us. Satan did. God just let him. Now look at this. Government and the law. Right.
Okay,
Oh, and education. The evil education. Right.
here's where we get into it. Since the churches don't have websites, I checked out the local Mennonite congregations in my area. They are also Anabaptist, amillennialist, but broke from the Amish around 1700 and were much more accepting of modern society.
Wow, they broke away. Why'd they broke away? I thought Amish was the way to go.
Or the English, as they call us. They still hold similar beliefs, but since they aren't closed off, embrace technology, and actually worship in churches, I can at least find their statement of faith online. That's not to say the Mennonites are the same as the rest of us. They certainly hold the teachings of Christ closer than the modern world. You typically won't see them wearing fancy clothes, and everyday sins for us, like divorce, are not tolerated. Shunning is very real.
Yeah, but a lot of these young women probably just leave before they even get married. Right. You're not bringing that up. How many of these young women look at a guy and say, "Yeah, I can just hop the train with him," right?
What I was able to
They have technology, so they know how things work.
discover was that they both embrace the Dordrecht Confession of Faith. It's a short read, and I recommend everyone take the time to become familiar with it. It won't be foreign to any studied Christian. There's nothing shocking. They just take the teachings of Christ much more seriously than the rest of us.
Ah,
It's clear they embrace the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes, which is where they arrived at their stance on nonviolence, avoiding excess, vanity, and pride, among other things. What's interesting is that the Dordrecht Confession of Faith asks believers to proselytize. It states
so if they're getting into the world, they've got to spread their cult. These guys are a cult that wants to spread it around, right? So if they become a part of the world, in order to keep their women around, they have to engage in the hierarchy. And they engage in the hierarchy by becoming a somebody as a sermonizer, right? Increase the church and have me on top of it.
that they must confess his name before men, a clear description of public witness. This language echoes Matthew 10:32 and Romans 10:9, which are core evangelical texts. In fact,
The problem with all this is that it's like those little towns where everyone's inbred, because people grow up and they leave, but people don't show up and replace them. That's what these little cults are about.
if the original Anabaptists were like the Amish of today, their
Or
own
I should say what these cults suffer. Right.
founder, Jacob Ammon, would have never converted to Christianity because he would have never have heard the words of Jesus Christ. So why would they not just ignore but deliberately reject this part of their own faith? The Amish haven't
Well, a lot of people do. They're just like all the other cults that came over here to make their own versions.
completely rejected technology. In fact, in recent years, they've even begun to embrace cell phones, combustion engines, and electricity for work.
If once they grab hold of cell phones, it's over for them. This young woman here, semi-attractive, she's going to see the real world and say, I want to be a part of that. I don't have to be with this loser. I don't have to get up early in the morning. If I can doll myself up and get a man who will just have me lounge around the house.
But they don't allow it to pollute their homes. They use the necessary tools to provide for their families, as noted in 1 Timothy 5:8. But that's where it stops. For all other practical purposes, the Amish are exactly as they have been for hundreds of years. But where it gets interesting is that buggies, plows, hand tools, and even the clothes on their backs are technology. Human
Exactly. So they're not actually against technology, are they? That's why the Bible doesn't say anything about it. What they are against is a level of technology which allows the women to make choices. And the choices would be, I don't want to deal with this low status loser. This is what this guy is. If actually it looks AI, but he represents a real man, and this guy's a low status loser. And these women would dump them. If they couldn't divorce them, they'd just leave anyway. A woman doesn't need the divorce to simply get up and leave. All kinds of guys will shack up with a married woman. All kinds of guys. They're willing to sacrifice their very children for women. Why wouldn't they just say, hey, I don't care about that other guy? She can make up a story and say, he beat me. Then the guy says, good, that's my excuse to say he's the bad guy. Come live with me.
inventions. So it's not that they reject technology, it's just that they picked a very specific period of time in which they stopped accepting new advancements. And that period of time just happens to coincide with what many of us believe to be the loosing of Satan. They could have
Really? So Satan didn't get loosed until what, the 1800s? Or the 1700s?
chosen any period of time to start rejecting technology, but it looks like right around 1800.
I thought Satan was always around. The biblical times went way before buggies, right?
with the textiles, the steel plow, the cotton gin, etc. For such a spiritually obedient culture, the only reason I can think of for them
There's nothing that's spiritual about their lifestyle. Being nasty to all other groups of people so these guys can hoard women to themselves. That's not spiritual. That's entirely being within this world. If these guys were entirely spiritual, they wouldn't have families. They'd go off and become hermits. They'd become monks. That would be spiritual. If you got a family that is a wife, because that's what a family is to men, then you are entirely within this world, one way or another. You are not a spiritual man.
to suddenly stop adopting new technology would be because they knew that Satan had taken control of the world. Why are the Amish closed off, hard to discuss views with if Christ repeatedly pleaded with us?
It's funny. How come God always allows Satan to do what he does? You can't blame God, even though God is doing this, right? You may as well. I mean, I don't believe in the horseshit anyway. If you have to make these kinds of crazy ideas, right? These kind of what is it? Mental gymnastics to try and explain what's going on.
To spread the word. And even their own statement of faith demands it. Why did they choose a date almost 250 years ago to stop embracing new technology?
I just told you. These guys realized we can't compete, or we don't want to compete with other men. So it's isolate our women, keep them away from technology. They won't leave us. That's why.
It would seem like a completely random date if not for what we know today. They don't even have churches like the Mennonites. They congregate in each other's homes to worship, just as Romans 16:5 tells us to do when Christian churches become synagogues of Satan, as most have today.
Church architecture is gorgeous. You think I'd want to sacrifice that to become Amish? That's sad. This is my idea. Like, look at that church. It's built of stone. Asphalt and concrete are ugly. Stone and brick are beautiful. So if the Amish are going to reject that level of technology, they can have it. Because this isn't even high tech. Beyond, I should say, the architecture. Like the guys who made this had to know how to make the stone stand. Right. It's a worthwhile technology.
I think they actually know it's the little season because they behave as the Bible tells us to during this time. It makes sense knowing both their text and behaviors that they know.
Again, if they're so great, how come you don't become Amish then, dude? You're really fascinated with them, but you can't even go up and talk to them. Maybe they didn't want to talk to you, right? They love you so much, but they don't want to deal with you, right? They love people so much they're willing to sacrifice their children to keep their way of life, to keep their women around. This woman even has sunglasses. Like these people, and when I say these people, I mean guys like tired of make-believe. They can't even see the forest for the trees. They can't see what so obviously motivates these guys. Like again, they show these people going to the hospital where technology rules when they need it. So this is pretend for them. They're saying we want to set up our society so our women won't leave us. And we're willing to suffer all these other, lack of amenities just to have them around. Again, I'll say it. I would rather not live in a world where I can't see a woman in a thong bikini. just so I can have this woman dressed dourly like this and pretend that she loves me. Make me puke. Anyway, that we'll end it here.